All right, contracts. They are the hardest thing to deal with in the writing profession because they are where all of the stakes of your future are determined. It's the agreement, the covenant that you make with a business which is already well established when you are the little guy trying to fight just to make your next paycheck. And we really have to talk about these because, in a way, this is everything. Here's a Wired contract. I don't know which one this is for. This is for an article that, in fact, actually I never even ended up writing. Uh, they're usually 4 to 7 pages long. Uh, Book contracts can get way longer. A book contract can get 50, 70 pages long. And realize that every single sentence in this contract is meant to define not only the relationship between you and this company, but also where the money is going to go. And I just mentioned in the previous video that magazines make a lot of money on every issue that they put out. We're talking millions of dollars. And of those millions of dollars, their total freelance budget comes out to about 1 to 2% of their total gross revenue that they bring in. And that is gross. That you are the writer, you are the person coming up with these great ideas. You are the one who's conceived of this idea, got through this pugilistic pitching process. And in my opinion, you are worth more than 2% of a magazine's value. When I go to sit down to read a magazine, I don't really care about who's on the masthead. I don't care about the Ford ads. I care about that riveting story, which is what you also want to create. So, when you read this, and don't just get the contract, be so happy that you're writing for Wired or writing for the New Yorker or writing for whoever. Don't be excited by that publishing opportunity. Realize that because you've made it through this pitching process, because they have said yes to you, that means they think that they can make money on you. That means that you are valuable. And so often, us writers don't think that we're valuable. We just think that there's a million writers out there who are thinking the same things that we are. And if we push back just a little bit, they're just going to walk. And that's just not true. Usually the pitch process is very long and torturous for the writer, but it's also long and torturous for them because they're looking for the right thing in which they can sell to Ford, to put that advertising next to it that makes them $150,000. And then, perversely, they also want to minimize their costs. And because writers are so infighting against each other and so worried and so we're self-conscious. We write something, we think it's terrible, and isn't it great that someone liked us just a little bit? Well, yeah, that's true. It's good that they like you just a little bit, but you should get paid too. Now realize that this contract, every single page of it, is about them taking rights from you in one way or another, and you need to read that. And every contract's different, so I can't really tell you specifically what you're going to do in any one engagement. But I will say that you have to make money on your stuff. If you're getting paid $2 to $3 a word for an article, and you're making $7,000 in that article, that does not cover you for 6 months of life, right? That covers you for 2, 3, 1, I don't know, whatever your expenses are. So you need to be able to build something up. And in this contract lie clauses where they take stuff from you. And you need to fight them back. You need to keep your movie rights. You need to keep your TV rights. You need to keep your book rights, your merchandising rights. If someone comes in and makes a movie on your work, well, Condé Nast, who runs Wired, has already made $300,000 on your work. Why do they also need to take all of your movie rights on that? Why do they also have to take your radio appearance rights or your public appearance? Those things are in this contract, and you need to read it, and you need to literally fight. with that editor. You need to go, either the editor has power, but usually they don't. Usually it's an attorney above the editor. And almost always, magazines have at least two boilerplate contracts. They have the burner contract, which is this person didn't even read it and was just really happy to work with us. And they will take everything. And then they have the slightly nicer, softer contract. The first thing you need to do is say, give me your real contract. Give me the one where I retain more rights. And often they have them just literally sitting on the shelf, and they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry, I sent you the wrong contract. Literally, I've gotten that email like 8 times from 8 different editors. So then you get the nicer contract, and then you read through this, and honestly, it's not going to be that much better, but it's a little bit better. And then push back. You need to think about where this can build, and you need to realize that if they're asking for 60 days of exclusivity or a year of exclusivity, which means you can't reprint it or even put it on your website first, then you've lost your ability to monetize that. And a lot of these things are emotional, right? These don't just rely on established business principles. There's not just one way to do things. It's really about what they can take and what you can get back. It's a negotiation, and these things become covenants that can keep you locked into a deal that where you got $7,000 for 8 months of work. I've done things where I've gone into war zones where I've had literally guns pointed at me by people who would possibly pull the trigger, and I was getting $4,500 on that. But I did negotiate the rights to that contract, and that story. It was one of these was on bone trading in India. I got paid $4,500 from Wired, and I was able to reprint it in France and in England and Czech Republic, Poland, Maxim, in Thailand, weirdly, and it added up to $26,000. So I actually made $30,000 on a story that if I had not negotiated the contract, I would have only made $500. So push back and realize that they need you just as much as you need them. They are at the negotiating table with you. They've gone down this long path, and they need you. And this is the scary part. You need to be willing to walk from a contract. Like, just because they're the New Yorker, just because they are the Atlantic, this one place that you've always wanted to work for, if you go in there without the mindset of realizing your own value, you are going to take a bad deal, and you're going to limit yourself down the line. And there's some sort of like power that also comes in from saying no. When you I once got a contract from the New Yorker to write a stupid blog post about piracy, and we negotiated. I knew I wasn't going to make much money on it. It was $150, but then I read the contract, and they wanted every single right from this. So if someone did want to come in and make a movie out of it, which was unlikely, that they would just outright own it. And I was like, yo, that's unfair. I can't sign that. Out of principle, I said no. And the funny thing was, after I said no, I was like, I had this just elation in me because I realized I wasn't getting much money in the first place. And I just said no to somebody who was way more powerful than me. And at the end of the day, I stood up for my value. And you need to be willing to do this too. And to some degree, that means having a little capital to survive. The other thing that it means, and we're going to get to this in the pitching process, it's also about having options. It's about not just realizing that this is your only option, but actually talking to 2, 3, 4, 5 different magazines at a time about your idea. And then realizing that, well, the New Yorker wouldn't play ball, but I was still able to get a pretty good deal from Mother Jones or Rolling Stone or Vox or BuzzFeed. And then with options, now you have a little bit of freedom, and you're going to get that freedom from the pitching process. And literally being able to say no is hard, because a lot of times you're not running on a lot of capital. You've been running that short line fisherman routine where you're getting $200 each, and you feel like you absolutely need to jump at that contract because it's this big deal. And I'm telling you right now, that you can't run for that opportunity. You can't just reach for that thing that looks so tantalizing. You have to be able to walk. And, just yesterday, the day before I'm recording this, I told my wife, I recommended to my wife, who's been working on a project for, at this point, 6-7 months, to walk away from a $100,000 deal because they took the rights that were going to grow it into something else. And it's scary, but it's also something that you need to do if you want to approach stability later in your career. All right, now let's talk next about making those options happen, how to pitch so that it's possible that you can add value to your work.